In this video, we're going to explore how we can trigger our X scale and put margin and padding the moment we hover. As you can see here, as I hover over a specific bar, it will reposition the X scale downwards. And if I move away, it goes back to its original position. So let's start to look how we can do this. So let's start to look how to add padding and margin to the X scale labels on Hover in Chartjs. So the first thing what we need is we need to go to chartjs3.com, getting started. This specific link here, which you can find as well in the description box. And we're going to grab the border template. Copy all of this. If you want to understand this code, make sure you watch this video here. Then paste that in there, cut, and put the title on here. Save, refresh here, and there we are. So this works. So what I want to do now is I want to maximize the size of the bar. So I'm going to say here 80% for this chart. There we are. And now let's start to work on hovering, the hover effect with this item here, the labels. So to do that, I need to create a plugin. So I'm going to create a plugin here. So in the options, or just after the options, put a comma. We're going to say plugins, bracket. And what we can say here, let's give it a proper name. Let's say the X scale hover padding. So let's start to create this object here. I'm going to call this artist plugin block. Constant this equals ID of this, and then we can say here, when would we like to draw this? We can draw this before the data sets. Say before data sets, draw with an S. Then we're going to say your chart arc. Oh, make sure we spell it correctly. Chart arcs plugin options. So once we did this, we want to create an object destructuring. And the object destructuring, if you don't understand what object destructuring is in Chartjs, I have a video for that. It's in the description box, understanding Chartjs object destructuring. So I will not explain what I'm doing here, but basically it is an object destructuring. So the next thing what I want here is, well, let's see, we can probably use the CTX. We might need the tooltip, not certain about that, but we might need the data, and we can get the scales. So some of them we probably won't be using, but we can always remove them afterwards. So that's no problem at all. So then what I want to do is the following. I want to first of all start to work with how do we figure out a hovering position, because that's the most important one. So if we hover on this one, we want to adjust the position of this, or let's start to change that position first. Maybe that makes more sense. So what we're going to do here, well, let's get the hover. That's probably the most important one. So to do this, or to get the hover effect, I'm going to use a special built-in Chartjs command. And let's use a console log to show you. So I'm going to say here, chart.getDataSet meta index 0. And then if we do this and save that, refresh, you will see now we get a lot of this information here. And if we look here, eventually you will see here somewhere the data. There we are. And if I go into the data, we have some very useful information which is called active equals false. This here indicates if an item would be hovering, or if we're hovering on an item and showing the tooltip yes or no. If I show that, I think it will eventually show here, but it's too hard to see. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to get that specific path. So go into the data, let's do index 0 for now, and then look at active. Dot data, and index 0. And maybe you're wondering why here index 0, this is a built-in Chartjs function. So it's not an object, it's just a function. So that's why we have to put in here the number in parentheses instead of a block, or like these brackets. So if I do this and I say dot active, say refresh, alright, you can see it's false upon initial load. Then if I hover, true. If I go here, of course this is all false because we only trigger index number 0. But you can see here this shows it, so it understands this logic. Once we have this, it becomes easier, because what we could do here is, well, let's see, what we could do here is probably a for each loop to look at every specific item, and if one of those would be, and if you're wondering what I mean by that for loop, because we can use here, you can see here we get access to every data point of dataset 0 we do like that. Alright, so, oh sorry, not like that. I need to remove this. So we get the array of 7 items. And of course, because of the animation, it loads multiple times. However, you can see here, these are all of the items and they're all false right now. So now we have access to all of this data. So the next thing what we need to do is start working on the for loop that we can do. So we can do it here because this is now an array of data. So not a for loop, but a for each loop. Alright, so we have the for each, and then for each, let's put in here, for every data point we get, and let's put in the index as well, we might need that one. Then put in a function arrow expression, because this is basically a callback functionality. And then what we're going to do here, if the data point, and here we can just grab this, which is basically the shorthand for this, dot active equals true. If that is the case, in that case, oh, what did I do here? Sorry. If this is true, let's see, hold on, where's the if statement? Make sure we have the if statement. If this is true, then we will do something. And what we're going to do is, well, let's say a console log, say okay, and else, if it's false, we're going to say here false for now. Just save that, refresh. You can see here, alright, we can see, and of course it loops 6 times. Why does it loop 6 times? Because of all of these items here as well. So now what we want to do is to get access to the specific xscale area where we can control the positioning of it. So we got x dot, and then maybe here I realized that we should have also, let's hide this for now and just go work on the xscale here. Let's do an x, and later on we will pick this up, but let me show you this first so you have a full understanding of what we're doing here. So we have this, and this is the full x scale. Let's go here down to get the latest one, and then if we go in here, we go into the label items, and then we open up one of these items, you will see here the text baseline middle, which controls the center of it. So basically, this one is center, but this is on a horizontal level, and this is on a vertical level. So middle, top, and bottom are positioned. So let's change that one. So how do we get there? We say dot, and then let's look at it. How do we get there? It's to labels or underscore label items. Very important here with the underscore. Usually they don't recommend to use this, because if ever there would be a new version, like Chartjs version 4, they might want to reposition this object, because everything with an underscore would indicate that they might want to restructure that for a more efficient structure. Anyway, in Chartjs 3, 3.9, 3.10, or whatever will come in the future, it will be all fine. But if there's a new version, Chartjs 4, Chartjs 5, different story. So we have to see if that will work. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Right now, there's no real problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to readjust this one. We're going to say text baseline. Let's say here, index 0. So we're going to only grab this one here. Dot text baseline, and let's set this now on, instead of middle, we're going to set this on top, pushing it to the bottom. So if I save this, refresh, you can see here Monday, it goes down, but this is very important here as well. If I change this to Monday, and you have these characters with like a Y where they are going more down, you will see it is being clipped off a bit. And we will focus that, or we'll solve that as well, because how do you get that? It's basically in here. Let's save this, refresh here. Then we click on this, you can see here the text offset would indicate how many pixels is being pushed down, and that is basically our issue. So we're going to say here console log, and let's do just exactly the same, and let's just put that in there. Dot, and then I realized what I should do here was the text baseline equals top, and we could say here for text offset, maybe to make sure that we don't lose it, we do only 5 pixels. Save this, refresh. You can see here now, if you look very carefully, you will see here that the Monday works nicely and the Y is clearly visible. So this is very important. If you have bigger font size, then you might need to readjust this to a lower level. Anyway, Alright, so we have this now. What we want to do now is cut this out, put it in here. And then let's remove all of these comments that we have here. And that one as well. So there we are. This I'll just properly indent. If I save this right now, there we are. But if I hover over it, does it? Alright, you can see here, if I hover over it, it works, but it doesn't go back. So we have to make sure that we have to go back position. Let's remove this console log, which is no need anymore, because we understand now what we did. Let's remove this. Then what I will say is I will just copy this, put it in here. We put it back to the middle. And what I want to do here, we have this label items. And remember, these are just the index numbers. So if I save this, it will, interestingly enough, what happens here, top else. Alright. We should have that change, but surprisingly it doesn't change, so I'll have to check on that one. Well, let's see. Well, first of all, let's fix most important one, the index. And then after I will just have to check why it's not doing as expected. So we have this. If I save that, put that here, there we are. Alright, I don't know, maybe I didn't save it properly, that's why. So you can see here it's moving, and the moment we move away from it, it will just reposition itself back to its original state. Alright, so now final item here, because what we could do here, we could give it a bit more space. So let's go in here. We're going to do in the X scale, and in the X scale we can control basically the height of the scale here, or specifically the height that the X scale has been assigned to. So we're going to say here in the X scale, after fit, which is a built-in command, colon, and then we can say a context, and equal for function arrow expression, because this is a callback functionality basically. And we're going to change the height for this, but I'm going to show you your console log. Copy this, save that, refresh, open up developer tab, click on that, and then we can see here the height. The height is 28 pixels, which could be alright, because that's about, that's this point I can check this about to somewhere here or somewhere like that. You can see 30 pixels, 28. That's about this amount. So it could be very clear here. It's 28.4. So what I want to do is I want to change this. I want to say now it's going to be 28.4. We will just say here we're going to grab the height, whatever the height is. So the 28.4 plus equal 25 additional pixels. Save, refresh. Now we have this, and you will see here now this is much larger. And we could even do a console log. You will see now it will also show that it is basically included. Alright, interesting. It doesn't show. Oh, of course. The reason why it doesn't show is because I have to do below here. Because here it's the formula. There we are. 28.4 plus 25 will make 53.4. So that's all correct. So now we have this here. Save that, refresh. Let's change this a little bit. So, of course, if you do this, you will have to play around with your text offset here a little bit more, maybe plus 25. But here, if you want to put in the center, you have to recalculate that. Maybe it's 10 pixels or something like that. Then we can see here, you can see here it's jumping up and down based on the hover effect. And there we are. And that is basically how you can control the scale on the X or the X scale labels here on Hover. So if you enjoyed this video and maybe you want to have, for example, clickable bars or clickable scales as well to make your X scale even more interesting, that when you click on one, you will have a link going to somewhere else. In that case, I'm going to recommend you this video here on how to create clickable X scales with links in Chart.js.